Hey friends, welcome to this week's video. We are going to be looking at the Bowers & Wilkins PI7 this week. However, if you didn't look at my review on the PI5s, we do go over a lot of the same things in terms of, the design language, the design, the application. There are a few slight differences that make the PI7s better. However, there's going to be a lot of the same similarities between these two reviews. And I'm going to try to keep this review a little bit shorter just as a result of that. So just keep that in mind. If you want to see full details of my initial thoughts on that PI5, definitely check out that. But let's get into the PI7s and what makes them special. Let's get into the specs. The PI7s are going to come with the same stuff as the PI5, so not much to talk about here. You'll get the main unit, the ear tips, the cables, the standard stuff. However, there is an addition of a USB-C to 3.5mm jack, which we'll get into later in this review. The earbuds are the same form factor as the PI7s, but differentiated by the goldish accents versus the silver from the PI5s. The PI7s sport a slightly smaller driver at 9.2mm, but the PI7s are more refined with a higher resolution capability, as well as a wider range of quality audio codecs such as aptX HD and aptX LL. The earbuds also have a 6 mic array versus the PI5's 4 mic array, which will help in the ANC, active noise cancelling, and call quality departments. And lastly, while the controls are exactly the same and just as not customizable as the PI5s, the controls did seem to be more reliable, consistent, and responsive on the PI7s. Alright fam, let's talk about this case. So, I'm going to say that this case is actually quite pretty. So with that gold hit, it definitely hits differently, but in black it is much more sexy and it seems sleeker. However, it does still follow the design language of the, the 1000 XM3s very closely, so I still don't like that. However, its slimness, it can fit into the fifth pocket. It's not gonna be huge to carry around, and because they open from the top, you could easily grab your earbuds from there. However, it's still fat stubby boy. It's gonna be like that in your hand, at least compared to other headphones. The other thing that I need to say about the case is that it's just very subpar in terms of battery. So the battery itself is 20 hours all in, so that's 4 on the earbuds and 4 extra charges in the case. That is lower than the PI5s, which are at 24.5 hours and 4.5 hours per charge. Yeah, so that's giving you a little bit over 4 charges, plus better battery life overall. You can get through your day quite easily. This one you'll come short depending on how often you use it, so you're gonna have more battery issues with this one, and per charge it's kind of abysmal just like before. While the due rate at 4, I was getting consistently under 4, so around 3.5 to 3 hours and 45 minutes is usually what I got out of my listening with ANC on. Again, your stats will improve with ANC off, but most of the time I listen with ANC on, unless it's like an ambient situation like when I'm on the field. But some kind of mode's on, so it's gonna use the microphones and it's gonna affect your battery life, so you'll likely hit that 4 under mark. So battery life's very, very inconsistent or unimpressive at this point, especially when Sony and Master & Dynamics are pushing out things at 8+ with ANC on. So that's something to consider. Again, music gonna sound great, or supposedly, until we get to that part of the review, but it doesn't really work if it's not on or charged. But this case does have one more trick up its sleeve, and let's get into that. Bowers & Wilkins has introduced the concept of Bluetooth retransmission native on the PI7s, and I want to say that's the first for a set of Bluetooth wireless earbuds, but you guys have to check me and tell me in the comments. The function is accessed simply by plugging the 3.5mm jack into a compatible device and then plugging the USB-C side into the case. The case will turn blue before going to a series of pulsing white lights to indicate that the retransmission is active. This can also be done with the USB-C to USB-C cord that is included for charging as well. I did notice that volume was not as high as it is with direct Bluetooth connection, but it's still well beyond serviceable for most instances. The whole thing is plug and play and simple to start up, And with that, you get high quality, low latency sound, which I immediately thought would be great for my Nintendo Switch. Here's a sample of how this sounds over Bluetooth retransmission.
Go!
So obviously gaming is one use case for this, but you can also use this for playing, again, plugging into the entertainment system. That's going to be great to have that retransmitter so you don't have to bring wired headphones. But also the really big use case that I see here is obviously if you're an audiophile, you can plug this guy into your turntables, your decks, your amps, and get better quality from your more lossless sources than your phone. So ideally, with that 24-bit retransmission, you can get better quality out of these headphones, not only because you have all of the improved codecs, but also the fact that the source itself is more lossless or more pure, and the transmission from the 24-bit is consistent. And again, really the only thing that you maybe really running into, from what I understand from, is going to be your range and your consistency of connection. So the sound could come through, which would be great for audiophiles, but it may break up. So let me show you a little bit from a clip that I just created here and now. I didn't notice this initially, but when I was walking away from my testing of the Switch, I did notice sound breaking up through the retransmission when I was changing rooms. This is something I didn't notice when I was directly connected via Bluetooth. Obviously, this might not be an issue for everyone, but if you wanted to grab coffee or a book in another room, you might get some static or breakups. Upon measuring it officially, it started breaking up around 25 feet, which is well under what I saw in the field and pretty subpar in general. Since we're on the subject of the field anyway, let's talk about connectivity via direct Bluetooth. In an open field, I was able to get around the 30-yard line or 90 feet before I started experiencing breakups in signal. Sometimes I'd make it to the 40, but it wasn't consistent enough to be pleasurable. That is where the PI5s outpunched the PI7s, as I was able to get to the 40-yard line with the PI5s and get a consistent signal and hear my music without interruption. Another thing I noticed is that I'd get connection drops on the right earbud occasionally, which was further validated when my left earbud would consistently die before the right. Lastly, similar to the PI5s, I had connection breaks and laying down flat despite being right next to my device. It's a weird quirk, but further shows the relatively inconsistent connectivity with the PI7s. However, from a workout perspective, it is still that amazing fit that I raved about with the PI5s. Light, close to ear, snug. I never had to worry about these falling out or getting damaged by sweat. Jumping, change of direction, rolling, throwing, these earbuds didn't even feel remotely loose. And as long as my phone was near me or on me, I didn't really have to worry about these at all. Fit's still solid as hell. Love it. So this is a recording of the Bowers and Wilkins PI7s. I hope you guys get a good understanding of how this sounds through the microphones and how you might sound on a call using this through work. No one really had an issue with how I sounded. They thought I sounded pretty clear, and they didn't notice any differences from the previous week when I was on the PI5s. However, from my perspective, listening back to the recordings that I tested with, I did notice that the PI7s were a little bit louder. I'm not sure if that was just my voices, but generally I speak in the same tones, but it did sound like the PI7s got a little bit louder, but the clarity still retained. I don't have like a rainy ambient sound sort of scenario where I can test this like I did with the PI5s, but I would imagine they have the same sort of ambient sound like
focuser where, you know, your voice will be able to make it over most noises. Again, once it gets into like really high wind, there's no protection for that. That's when your audio and your voice will start cutting. However, just overall like normal wind or just normally walking around, you won't have sort of any of that motion getting into the earbuds, so you'll still be able to have clear phone calls. But tell me what you think in the comments, and we'll get into more sound sampling throughout this review.
From an ambient noise perspective, things sound pretty natural, and there seems to be a bit more pickup of detail. This is likely attributed to the 2 additional mics on the PI7s. The application, while still pretty basic, does now give you the ability to tune that ambient noise, which is wonderful and shows a noticeable difference in what is allowed in. On the ANC side, the isolation seems to be better on the PI7s and it seems to block out more noise. High-pitched noises still get in, but to a lesser extent than the PI5s. Bowers & Wilkins also has a smart detection feature which allows the ANC to adjust based on your surroundings, but I did not find it dramatically helpful in comparison to the regular vanilla mode. Apparently you can also activate ANC and ambient together, which sounds counterintuitive, but let me know what y'all think about that function. Overall, they are solid ANC competitors, but do not perform as well as Sony and Apple in this department. Here's a sample of the passive noise isolation, max ambient noise and ANC, and pure ANC. With the sound modes out of the way, let's focus on the crowning jewel of the PI7s, which is the sound. Initially, I thought they were solid and very balanced, a definitely improvement over the PI5s, which were shaky at best. However, after going deeper in my library of music, whipping out the Amazon Unlimited, and mixing up genres, I realized the PI7 spec sheet is not just a bunch of pretty numbers. There's a significant quality that is possible through these, and the depth was wonderful. The bass is nice, punchy, and accurate, absolutely no distortion through the low end, nor through the entire volume range. Vocals sparkled beautifully as there was great separation of instruments for more complex arrangements, especially for a closed back design. I noticed very little bloat across the range of tones, and I really haven't heard something this nice, accurate, and unbloated since the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 2s. I will say that these definitely do better for music than movies or podcasts. Don't get me wrong, they still sound great for those mediums. I just found that voices don't have the same depth or wow factor as the Master Dynamic MW08s. Here are some music samples for you to hear the quality for yourself. So the PI7s are definitely a little bit better in terms of the sound, and they gave a little bit more functionality that made it justify to an extent why these things are $100 more than the PI5s. However, based off the things that we've talked about, I really can't recommend these solely for the fact that it's still, from a foundational perspective, doesn't really meet a lot of the needs that I would expect from true wireless earbuds. I will tell you the sound is probably the best that I've heard from true wireless so far. However, it doesn't save its grace in terms of controls, connectivity, and battery life. Those are really holding this thing back because 4 hours is super low in terms of earbuds these times around. And then the connectivity just not being very consistent is just a detractor because of the fact that if it's constantly cutting in and out and you really can't be flexible with how far you are from your source, it doesn't matter how good these sounds, you won't be listening to things with high fidelity because it's going to break up. And then lastly, controls are just, you know, they are a little bit better than the PI5s, but that might also just be because I have like a little bit more learning curve on how fast the taps need to be, as well as how responsive that they can be. So I have a little bit better understanding of how to finagle around them. But I do think that they should be a little bit more intuitive, and a lot of other headphones do that better. In fact, most headphones do that better without the sort of response lag, with better confirmation tones and things like that. So despite me liking how the sound sounds, it doesn't justify this extremely high price tag for these true wireless headphones. I think you guys will be better off looking at, you know, the Sonys, Sennheiser, even Master and Dynamic. I would rather go down those pathways which are cheaper, just to get you what you need. And then I know a lot of people will be like, oh, but the sound is great, it's for true audiophiles, you don't know what you're talking about. It's true, but what I will tell you from, you know, I am not an audiophile, but from what I know of audiophiles, reliable sound is really important, and being able to listen to your music at any point, regardless if you need DACs, whether you need amps, you know, whether it's wired or not wired, reliability and consistency in sound is going to be important, and these guys are simply just not consistent. So sound is good, but does it really matter if you can't listen to it consistently? Just think about that before you spend $400. Not gonna knock you if you do, but just my recommendation. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I do appreciate you guys sticking out in all of July, where we've been looking at a ton of different headphones. And I do like that you guys have been liking the comparison, especially for that really long video that I did for the sub 300 ones. I will be taking these ones against the Master Dynamics, what do you call it? I think they came out with the MW08 Sports. That's one of my viewers mentioned. So I will be getting that in the mail shortly, and I will kind of put these head to head, but I will do a review on the MW08 Sports first and then compare these, since they are similar price range. This is 400, the Sports are 350, so it's more of a comparison, or better comparison from a price perspective, and then you guys will get that video. But thank you guys again for sticking out through all these things. There's gonna be more headphones coming up because I've been getting more. Not even just from the ones that I had stated so far. So just keep tuned. If you're liking what you're seeing, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, doing all the things you normally do in a video that you like and love. And to my OGs, thank you for supporting me. We are getting super close to 1,000. I think we're at 890 at this point, and that's the biggest jump I've seen in a video since, or between videos, since I think I started this channel like very, very long ago. But anyways, thank you guys. As always, appreciate you. Peace.